there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Theruni Karunaratna. Here are tonight's top stories.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
Ranil says Sajid will only
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
Starting off with a look at those stories in detail, Sri Lanka's President Ranil Wickremesinghe has sacked more members of his cabinet.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe has removed 5 state ministers, including Geeta Kumara Singhe, with immediate effect. The others include Shashindra Rajapaksa, Amit Tenukavidana Gamage, Prasanna Ranavira and D.B. Chanaka. The President's media division said that the removals were made under Article 47(3)(a) of the Constitution.
Sri Lanka decides! Sri Lanka decides.
The President's media division said that reports claiming that the Cabinet has not yet approved the salary increase for public sector employees set to be implemented in 2025 are false, and the necessary approval has already been granted. The President also commented on the matter during a program in Colombo. President Ranil Wickremesinghe addressed several issues during the #AskRanil youth meeting held in Colombo.
රාජ්‍ය සේවකයින්ට වැටුප් වැඩි කිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ලොකු කතාබහක් ඇති වුණා. හැබැයි මැතිවරණ නිරීක්ෂණ සංවිධාන පවා ප්‍රකාශ කළා මේ වැටුප් වැඩිවීමට කැබිනට් අනුමැතිය ලැබී නැති බව. මෙහෙම වැටුප් වැඩි කරන්න අපිට සල්ලි කොහෙන්ද?
කැබිනට් එක තීරණය කළා ඉවරයි. මං දන්නේ කොහොමද නිරීක්ෂණ.
It should be noted that the cabinet has indeed made a decision regarding salary increases. The role of election observers in this matter is unclear, and questions may arise about whether their involvement is independent or politically motivated. In 2022, financial constraints limited expenditures and our GDP fell to $76 billion. However, it rose to $84 billion in 2023. With these funds received, including support from the World Bank, our priority was to provide Aswasuma to low-income earners. Our GDP has continued to improve this year, leading to an initial allowance of 5,000 rupees for government employees in January. By March, we observed that the economy was performing better than anticipated, allowing us to increase the allowance to 10,000 rupees by 2025. We anticipated having sufficient funds to fully implement the recommendations from Udayan R. Seneviratna's report.
A lot
of serious questions. I'm going to ask you a proper chilled out question. So I have 2 questions actually. Palini question prashna tamai Janadhipatuma, Mr. President, do you like to drink beer, whiskey, wine or gal?
What?
Oh, gal.
What do I like?
Beer, wine, whiskey or gal?
I like power.
Power. Hey! Super. No wonder you've been an amazing president for the last 2 years. Power ke weather. Would you say yes or no to have a can of power with the Gen Z crowd?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, there goes.
My next question, will you share it with, if I give you the opportunity, will you share that? Both of us, can we share the can?
For sure, President, we can share it, no problem.
Very good.
Independent presidential candidate Ranil Wickremesinghe has called for support to empower him to stabilize the economy. He expressed these views during an election campaign rally held in Kilinochchi this afternoon.
The first rally for the day, attended by independent presidential candidate Ranil Wickremesinghe, today was held in Kilinochchi.
They watched as you suffered. When I took over and asked them to help me, they refused and instead demanded an election. You asked for fertilizer, medicine and diesel, but they asked for an election. Would an election have solved those problems? Were the ballot papers to be used for cultivation purposes? While you were suffering, all they wanted was to hold an election and launch strikes. I strengthened the rupee. After that, I provided concessions. The prices of commodities came down by 10%. Some went down by 20%, 30% and even 40%. We rebooted the country's economy. There are several more issues. The cost of living is unbearable. We need to relieve the people more. Although we have stabilized the economy, that stability has not yet been properly established. I am saying that we need to establish a stable economy. The plan for that is in our Puluwan Sri Lanka manifesto. I have 5 core principles: to reduce the cost of living, generating new job opportunities, relieve the people of the tax burden, convert the economy into an export-oriented one, and continue the Aswesuma and Urumia programs. I request your support to do this. Although the VAT was increased, we were able to strengthen the rupee. That is how your income increased. Also, we need to get more foreign exchange. Although we import goods and services, we do not have enough foreign exchange to pay for them. Due to this, we end up taking loans. That is why we are launching new initiatives. Will we move forward or not? What does Anura say? What does Sajid say? They keep talking, but there is no content there. We need to develop this area. We need to eradicate poverty. We need to build a bright future for you. Think about your own future, rather than focusing on the interests of Sajid Premadasa or Anura Kumara Disanayaka. On the 21st of September, cast your vote in front of the gas cylinder mark. If you do not do that, you will actually have no gas in the future. Your future will also be destroyed.
Presidential candidate of the National People's Power, Anura Kumara Disanayaka, says that a respectable police service will be established within the country under his government. Now, he made this statement addressing a public rally in Mathale today.
Another rally of the Rata Anurata series, organised in support of NPP presidential candidate Anura Kumara Disanayaka, was held at the Mathale town today.
Our opposing parties said right at the start of the election season that we will never be able to win with 3%. But now do you hear them say that anymore? No. Now they have started to talk about things that would happen if the NPP comes into power. They are attempting to generate fear in the people's mind. Let me tell you this. On the 22nd, they will have to admit that we won. Have no doubt about that. Frankly, some people panicking is no surprise to us. Those who were involved in the bond scam need to be worried, shouldn't they? They should. Those who wasted money of the Central Cultural Fund need to be worried. Those who wasted money of the Housing Fund need to be worried. Those who took money from Aloysius need to be concerned. There are liquor factories. There's one in Mathale as well. They have not paid taxes on them. They need to be worried. Those who took millions of rupees from People's Bank and are trying to wave it off as bad debt, such as Daya Gamage, very much need to be worried. However, no innocent citizen has anything to fear. Keep in mind that the NPP will establish the most peaceful government that you have ever seen. Now they are trying to create fear in your minds, saying that certain acts of violence may take place on the 22nd. No, that will not happen. We are not here to take revenge. We are coming here to rebuild the country. The NPP government will ensure that the Sinhala, Tamil and Muslim communities live in harmony. I heard Ranil say at a rally recently that he has the best team. Who is on this team? Prasanna Ranatunga, Lohan Ratwatta, Rohita Abegunawardhana and Mahinda Anandaluthgamage. They are a good team if you are going to raid ships as pirates in Somalia. They are the ones who originally began spreading racism in the country. Do you remember? The people with Sajid are similar to this. Many of these people knocked on our door before switching sides. However, we did not take them in as they did not have a good reputation. Some people keep asking if there would be any last-minute changes to the ballot paper. Nothing will happen. Will Ranil do anything? He cannot do anything. Let me tell you this. Ranil is going to lose. He will leave peacefully and quietly. He is a man who is used to losing. It will be painful if it is your first time losing after an election. But for him, that will not be the case. So do not worry about him. He will have to leave. Nothing can be done about that. Some ask if anything bad will happen during the election. Nothing will happen. The ballot papers will be carefully counted by the state sector employees. The recently held postal votes have a result of 80 to 85% in favor of the NPP. Even the government sector employees prefer us. Some ask if the ballot boxes will be switched. No. It is the police that takes over the empty ballot boxes. The police also stands guard during the whole process. They then proceed to take full ballot boxes to the Kutch area. Then the police takes them to the counting centers. Do you think the police will let any sort of thing happen? No, don't even think that. We will build a reputable police service, free from political intervention, and ready to protect the peace and harmony in the country. The NPP will take the responsibility of converting the police service into a reputable one. Some have now started to say that Anura is capable of winning, but that his government would not last longer than 6 months. But they have understood one thing. They have admitted that Anura will win this time. Previously, they said that the NPP cannot win and we cannot win with 3% in our hand. That change alone is enough. We will take care of the longevity of our government. We always say that Anura Kumara is not an invalid candidate like Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Anura Kumara has much experience in the political arena. With 24 years in parliament, he has held ministerial portfolios and also been the chief opposition whip. He is a very skilled leader. That's not all. Anura will not be alone this time. We have a massive alliance. That alliance cannot be broken up, nor can anyone defeat us or topple us. We will build a massive public movement capable of building and safeguarding the country. No one can change that. If anyone thinks that a government of ours can be toppled in 6 months, they are very much mistaken. We are about to take over the country to fix it. We promise you that we will all get together and save this country from the abyss that it is in now.
University teachers supporting the National People's Power convened a media briefing at the NPP office.
Sajid Premadasa සාමාන්‍යයෙන් පෙනී සිටින්න උත්සාහ කරනවා බොහෝ දුරට.
Sajid Premadasa is positioning himself as a candidate who represents the grassroots and advocates for the welfare of society. To understand the difference between Sajid's approach and that of the NPP, one could compare Harsha De Silva with the NPP. There is a fundamental difference between Harsha De Silva's and Sajid Premadasa's perspectives. He often mentions that if the National People's Power comes to power, the IMF program will be completely disrupted. Whether this is true or not, it highlights his stance. He suggests that the IMF approach aligns with the SJB, which includes Ranil Wickremesinghe. If systematic change is what the people desire, then the only viable option is the National People's Power.
Dr. Dilipa Vitharana stated that the policies of the National People's Power aim to create an education sector free from political influences.
School teachers and principals are struggling to make ends meet today. That is why we have decided to elevate teachers' salaries to be among the top 10 highest paid sectors in the public sector in Sri Lanka. We will also provide them with specialized vocational training. Our goal is to completely eradicate all forms of violence within the school and university systems, particularly bullying, ragging and sexual harassment. We will create an education sector free from political influences.
The War Heroes National Conference in support of Sajid Premadasa, the presidential candidate of the Samagi Janabala Vegya, was held at the Sugadadasa Indoor Stadium in Colombo.
Former commanders of the Sri Lanka Army, General Mahesh Senanayake, General Daya Ratnayake, as well as many retired personnel from the three armed forces and Sri Lanka Police were present for the War Heroes National Conference of the Samagi Chanabalawegaya. The event opened with a moment of silence for fallen war heroes. Multiple items added colour to the event.
ජාතික ආරක්ෂාවට මුල් තැන දෙන යහපත් රාජ්‍ය පාලනයක් දෙක විනය මුල් කොටගත් යහපත්
Good governance must prioritize national security. Secondly, it should be based on discipline. Thirdly, it should uphold the independence of the judiciary. Lastly, it should ensure an independent police service that prioritizes the rule of law and autonomy. I firmly believe that these four pillars will form the foundation of the Sajid era starting on the 22nd September. All anti-democratic programs that were implemented for mere narrow political gains must end. If not, it will be impossible to prevent our country from facing the same challenges as Bangladesh, the Maldives and Lebanon. It is with great pride that the Hakiyawa Divid and Ranavira collective provides you with the strength and capability to achieve all these goals.
මාලදිවයිනක් සහ ලෙබනයක් බීම වළක්වන්නට බැරි වෙනවා. මේ සිළු දේ බලගැන්වීමට අවශ්‍ය ශක්තිය සහ හැකියාව දිවිදෙන රණවිරු සාහමිකය ඔබට ලබා දෙන බව පවසන්නේ ඉමහත් අභිමානයෙන්.
Retired war heroes also carried the Sajid era message to all 9 provinces from the War Heroes National Conference.
පැය 48ක් ඇතුළත ත්‍රිවිධ හමුදාව පොලිසිය සිවිල් ආරක්ෂක
Within 48 hours, a presidential task force will be established to address all issues concerning the three armed forces, the police and the civil defense sector. Additionally, a dedicated veterans department will be created to ensure the welfare of our veterans. Furthermore, the 15% interest on fixed deposits for the elderly community will be reinstated. The recently introduced system that deducts 5% from the interest amount will be abolished immediately. I want to share the story of a young girl from Yugadanava in Hingurakuda named Seumini Uresha who lost her father in the war. She never had the chance to see her father's body as it was in a sealed box. Many children of war heroes face similar heartache. I too did not get to see my father's body. It was also in a sealed box. This brave girl made an excellent proposal to create a program for the sons and daughters of Tamil families in the north and east, similar to the support provided to the families of war heroes. In this post-war era, we must set aside our differences and unite regardless of race, religion or ethnicity. By accepting her suggestion, we can implement a special program for the children of war heroes and the children of affected Tamil families across the north, south and east. Let us come together and fulfill this duty for our country. Regarding the confusion caused by the Easter Sunday attack, we are committed to transparently identifying the groups behind the terrorist attack and bringing the masterminds to justice. Additionally, we must tackle the drug trade, which is a significant issue for our country. I pledge to make the problems of the 22 million people of this country my own.
In a startling revelation, Sajid Premadasa, the presidential candidate of the Samagi Chanabalawegaya, has exposed the existence of a secret deal between Ranil Wickremesinghe and Anura Kumara Disanayake. He was speaking at an election campaign rally in Mawatagama.
සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසට වගකීම ලැබුණොත්
If I win, the problems faced by the people of this country will gradually decrease. If I take on the responsibility, those who have thrived on the people's pain and suffering will lose their political leverage. This secret deal, which has been ongoing for some time, was inadvertently revealed by Ranil Wickremesinghe himself. He claims he should lose, but Anura Kumara Disanayake will win. Anura Kumara Disanayake even went to the north and told the people there that the south will vote for him, so they should vote for him as well. This is nothing but a daydream. I want to assure you that the whole country is united and we are committed to creating a government that cares for and serves the common people.
අපි අනිවාර්යෙන්ම කැප වෙනවා.
ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ කණ්ඩායම මේ දවස්වල කියනවා ඕන්ට හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා.
The National People's Power asserts that they have the capability to restart and advance Sri Lanka's debt restructuring program with the international community in a manner that benefits the country. Last week, international bondholders visited Sri Lanka, held discussions with various stakeholders and shared their insights with us on Friday. They expressed disbelief at the Janata Vimukti Peramuna's economic team's proposals. They had said that when it comes to debt restructuring, creditors will be treated individually. According to the agreement with the international International Monetary Fund and all lending groups. Fairness is paramount. It is unacceptable for one group to receive a 20% write-off while another receives only 10%. They questioned whether a team lacking fundamental knowledge of debt restructuring could genuinely propose an alternative to the current program.
විකල්ප වැඩකිවිලක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න කියලා.
Jalani Premadasa visited the north to attend several rallies organized in support of the presidential candidate of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Sajith Premadasa. Jalani Premadasa received a warm welcome there. A public rally was held in Chunakam, Jaffna to muster support for SJB presidential candidate Sajith Premadasa. The rally was also attended by Jalani Premadasa.
Professor G.L. Piris and representatives of the northern province from the Samagi Jana Balawegaya attended the rally.
Jaffna and the northern province are rich areas. They are rich in human resources, they are rich in natural resources. All that is required is a government that will identify the priorities of the people. Now, what are your main issues here? Livelihoods, employment for young people, investment, education, the cost of living. These are the burning issues. The Honorable Sajith Premadasa has proposed a northern task force, a presidential task force, which will be fully empowered to deal with these issues. Now, this will require financial resources, much more than we have in our country. And in order to generate those resources, he has proposed an international donor conference. Already, we have had informal discussions with foreign governments, and they are very receptive to the idea. If there is a government with a fresh mandate, a stable government, a clear policy, then foreign governments are going to give us generous support in carrying this program forward.
The presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Nama Rajapaksa stated that unlike other candidates, he cannot make political promises regarding constitutional amendments. However, he assures that he is committed to creating a promising future for the youth community.
An election campaign rally to muster support for SLPP presidential candidate Nama Rajapaksa took place in Batiklo.
I
can only promise what I know I can deliver. If something is impossible, I will say so. I invite the youth, the new thinkers, those who are looking forward to the future. We are ready to work for this country together. Let's learn to secure jobs abroad, just like in Sri Lanka. Let's become businessmen, entrepreneurs, and embrace the world of technology. I invite you to join us and help make this election a victory. I want to see new leaders emerge, not just who travel from Colombo to Batiklo, but leaders who are born and raised in Batiklo. I am committed to supporting that.
Sri Lanka decides.
Independent presidential candidate Roshan Ranasinghe made a pledge before small and medium-scale entrepreneurs at a meeting held today.
I need to make a pledge, not a promise, about what I will do when I am elected as president. I will completely waive off the enormous interest on small and medium-scale entrepreneurs accumulated since 2019. Also, the fact that all those interests were converted into a loan is completely illegal. I will remove this too. The government will make sure that all of you will be given 10 to 15 years to pay off the loans.
Sri Lanka decides.
Presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Communist Party, Dilip Jayavira, said that a true change cannot be expected from any other presidential candidate. He made this remark at a rally held in Ahaliyagoda.
3 candidates have released their election manifestos. There is another policy statement by another juvenile candidate that makes 4 such manifestos. It is clear that there are no policies mentioned in them. All I can say is that none of these 4 candidates are capable of bringing about change. Your life will be the same when you wake up on the 22nd. Will you take this opportunity you have to improve your life or remain as a third world country? Will we take a step towards a developed world, a happier nation? Or will you remain in a country with hate, rage and other negatives? You will go down in history for being party to the flame that engulfed Sri Lanka.
Leap of the day.
United National Party organizer for the Habaraduwa electorate, Lionel Ilpalwatta, announced his support for Samagi Janabalawega's presidential candidate, Sajith Premadasa. He did so while joining a press conference convened by the SJB's spokesperson, SM Marikar.
විශේෂයෙන්ම අද අපිත් එක්ක එකතු වෙනවා හබරාදුව ආසනයේ එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ.
Joining us today is Lionel Ilpalwatta, who has served as an organizer for the United National Party in the Habaradu electorate. He is now aligning with SJB. Recently, Ranil Wickremesinghe was saying, "Do not vote for Sajith." Many United National Party members are disillusioned due to the party's persuasion to vote for the JVP.
පෙළඹවීම නිසා තමයි මේ එක්සත් ජාතික පාක්ෂිකයෝ කලකිරලා අද සමගි ජන බලවේගයත් එක්ක එකතු වෙන්නේ. එතුමා ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරමුණ.
He is employing a strategy to convert United National Party members to the JVP. Anura Kumara is referred to as my friend, but Anura Kumara responded that he doesn't care about such friendships. We cannot support a leader who treats these matters lightly. The true United National Party stands with Sajith Premadasa. We are genuine party members and we want to support Sajith.
The leader of the Lanka Tamil Arsu Katri, Mawai Senadiraja, says discussions were held today on whether any changes or amendments should be made to the resolution of the party to support presidential candidate Sajith Premadasa at the upcoming presidential election. Senadiraja said that the party's final decision will be officially announced on the 14th and 15th of this month. The Lanka Tamil Arsu Katri initially announced that they will support Sajith Premadasa at the upcoming presidential election.
The National People's Power says it will discuss with India and take steps to resolve the Sri Lankan Indian fishermen crisis. National Executive Member of the NPP, Tilvin Silva, made these remarks attending an event held in Mannar yesterday.
We have 8 times more marine resources here in Sri Lanka. We have unlimited wealth. Our country is rich in resources, but our country is bankrupt. Sri Lanka is bankrupt because of the previous rulers of this country. We will provide you diesel at an affordable price. Similarly, we will also provide fishing equipment at subsidized rates. We also know that we have a conflict with India in this marine region. We will discuss with India and take action to resolve the issue of fishermen.
Wanted. A leader. A Sri Lankan with the courage to lead a resplendent nation and her people into an exciting future. A Sri Lankan with intelligence and grace. A leader with a clean heart and a clean record. A leader in love with Sri Lanka. A leader this nation deserves. The presidential election 2024. Sri Lanka, you decide. Newsfirst, we report.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
Madhushan Chandrajit, the convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, was among 10 members of the federation that were arrested today. The suspects were arrested on charges of staging a rally opposite the Fort Railway Station in violation of election laws.
The Inter-University Students' Federation staged this protest over several matters, including the establishment of private universities.
We know that at a time when a presidential election has been announced, this government brought forward many decisions and policies that will affect the education sector of the country. We can clearly see that the state university sector has been dragged down into crisis. If they are trying to privatize this, we would like to say that we will take action to organize the people against any government who attempts to do this, including the government of Ranil Wickremesinghe.
When the protesters attempted to march from opposite the Fort railway station, they were stopped by the police and ordered to disperse. However, the protesters continued to move forward and disregarded police commands.
Bangladesh's new government, led by Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus, is grappling with a $500 million backlog in overdue payments to India's Adani Group for a contentious power project. The Financial Times reports that Bangladesh is facing a $500 million power debt crisis with India's Adani Group.
What is this India-Bangladesh energy issue?
The issue began with a 1,600 megawatt coal-fired power supply agreement signed with Adani. The rising accusation is that this agreement is non-transparent and involves obtaining electricity at a high price. Currently, Bangladesh is burdened with over $3.7 billion in energy debt. Out of the $800 million owed to Adani, $492 million is due immediately. International media, including the Financial Times, report that Adani is pressuring Bangladesh to pay its debt.
Where did this problem start?
The problem originated in the early 2000s. Initial agreements focused on small-scale energy transfers to meet immediate needs. The first power purchase agreement was signed in November 2017 between Adani Power and the Bangladesh Power Development Board, or BPDB, for 25 years. This agreement stipulated the supply of 1,496 megawatts of electricity to Bangladesh from Adani's Godda power plant in Jharkhand, India.
Is this agreement a loss?
Yes, the contract is a loss. In 2023, Bangladesh was buying Adani's electricity at 14.02 taka per unit, while purchasing from other Indian power producers at 7.83 taka per unit. This disparity has burdened Bangladesh's exchequer, exacerbated by the devaluation of the Bangladeshi currency.
So, the troubled and loss-making Adani-Bangladesh power transfer agreement cannot be cancelled.
It's debatable. Some former energy consultants have pointed out a lack of clarity in the agreement's clauses. Experts believe now is the time to renegotiate this unfavorable agreement, which was prepared and signed under the 2010 Prompt Power and Energy Supply Special Act. They suggest that by properly reviewing and revising the deal, costs could be cut by at least 50%.
What steps did India follow when Bangladesh demanded that the agreement be revised?
India passed a new law unrelated to the amendment of the agreement. The law, which was passed last month, allows electricity exported from India to be transmitted within the country during an emergency. Despite payment delays, Adani has stated that supplies will continue. The caretaker government of Dr. Muhammad Yunus assures that China and India relations will remain unaffected.
The Kenyan High Court has temporarily suspended the proposed plans to lease the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to Indian conglomerate Adani Enterprises.
Kenya's High Court has temporarily blocked a proposed deal for India's Adani Group to lease the country's main airport for 30 years in exchange for expanding it. In a joint application, the Law Society of Kenya, or the LSK, the country's main bar association, and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, or the KHRC, told the court that the country could independently raise the $1.85 billion required to upgrade the airport in the capital, Nairobi. LSK and KHRC said the alleged 30-year lease of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, or the JKIA, East Africa's largest aviation hub, was unaffordable, threatened job losses, was a fiscal risk, and did not offer taxpayers value for money. The High Court granted the request for leave to file a judicial review to challenge the possible lease of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to Adani. Last month, the Kenya Aviation Workers Union called for a strike over the proposed deal, saying that it would lead to job losses and bring in non-Kenyan workers. Kenya's government has said the airport is operating above capacity and needs modernizing, but that is not for sale, and that no decision has been made on whether to proceed with what it calls a proposed public-private partnership to upgrade the site. It said in July that Adani's offer was being reviewed. If a deal is agreed, the government said there would be safeguards to ensure Kenya's national interests are protected.
The Cabinet has approved the establishment of a new regulatory body for the energy sector in the country. This decision follows a Cabinet paper presented by the Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Wijesekara.
Approval has been granted by the Cabinet meeting held on the 25th April 2024 to appoint a committee to study the establishment of regulatory mechanisms for the petroleum, liquefied petroleum gas, liquefied natural gas and lubricating oil sectors in Sri Lanka, and to submit the recommendations in that respect. Accordingly, the recommendations have been submitted by the so-appointed committee to introduce a new regulatory body for the energy sector. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers has approved the proposal presented by the Minister of Power and Energy to implement said recommendations and to instruct the legal draftsman to prepare a draft for the regulation of the petroleum industry.
Questions were posed regarding whether the Cabinet was presented with any salary increase proposals for government employees.
With the Cabinet's approval, it was proposed to implement a salary increase, provide a fixed living expense allowance of 25,000 rupees every month for 3 years, and increase the basic salary by 24 to 50%. As a result of these measures, employees would receive an allowance of 55,000 rupees.
The Director of Supply Chain at Capital Maharaja Group's Industrial Hub, Jayanta Gallaheva, was honoured with the esteemed IPFSM President's Award 2024 at the World Summit International Federation of Purchasing and Supply Management held in Mexico.
This prestigious accolade recognizes his exceptional contributions to raising the standards of Sri Lanka's supply chain industry, as well as his significant efforts to advance the sector on a global scale. Remarkably, Jayanta Gallaheva is the only Sri Lankan to have received this award and the third Asian professional to ever win this award within the last 10 years. The IPFSM President's Award, bestowed by the President of the IPFSM, is based on personal recommendations and honors of individuals who have made a substantial impact on the profession over many years. IPFSM represents a union of 44 national and regional purchasing associations worldwide, reaching over 250,000 purchasing and supply management professionals. Jayanta Gallaheva, a fellow member of ISSM and its 17th president, has held numerous key roles within the institute over the years, including vice president for 3 consecutive terms and positions as assistant secretary and general secretary. Beyond ISSM, he serves as the vice president of the Organization of Professional Associations of Sri Lanka, representing over 60,000 professionals across 52 member associations in 32 disciplines.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
මාතලේ සේනාගම කියන්නේ දුෂ්කර කම්මානයක්. ඔවුන්ගේ ජීවනෝපාය කෘෂිකර්මාන්තය සහ කුලී වැඩයි. මේ ගමේ වැසියෝ කන්න තුනම වගා කරලා රටට බත සැපියුවත් ඔවුන්ට බොන්න පිරිසිදු ජලය නැහැ. ඔවුන් සොයාගියා. ගම්මැද්ද රට නගන ජන පවුර.
Welcome back to the news. Volker Turk, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, highlighted the significance of elections as an opportunity for political leaders in Sri Lanka to recommit to a new vision for the country and address past concerns.
And I have spent quite some time in my global update on the importance of elections. Is an important opportunity as well, also in the context of Sri Lanka, for political leaders and for the parties to recommit to a new vision for Sri Lanka and to address the concerns of the past. We know that this takes a long time, but it is important for that to happen, to ensure that there is a free civic space for political campaigning and debate, that it's not impinged by violence or restrictions that are imposed on freedom of expression, of association and assembly. And we also have seen during election periods, not just in this country but in many others as well, that political parties often make promises and overtures, including to minority communities, and I hope that there will be sustained real commitment to these promises and action that addresses these concerns. It's now 15 years since the end of the conflict in the country, and we all hope the violence and suffering of that period will never be repeated. But there may not be an immediate risk of conflict returning, but as the report highlights, there is a real risk of human rights violations being repeated. So it's clear that there need to be sustained efforts for accountability, longer-term reforms, including security sector reforms, so that future human rights violations are prevented. Let me reiterate again the strong intention of myself, of my office, to work with Sri Lanka, with the people of Sri Lanka, with the new government, to help it in its democratic process, with the economic advancement of the country. Our engagement has always been for the long term, focusing on the underlying issues that have held the country back from achieving sustainable peace and development. The voices that we reflect in our reports are the concerns and aspirations of Sri Lankans themselves, particularly those who have been victims of injustice and violence in the past. And I hope that the Council will continue to hear these voices and continue its efforts to promote accountability, reconciliation and human rights for all Sri Lankans in a constructive spirit.
Switzerland has called for an investigation into evidence of arbitrary arrests, abuse and torture during anti-drug operations by the armed forces in Sri Lanka. At the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva on Monday, it called for those responsible to be prosecuted.
Switzerland is alarmed by the adoption or proposal of new repressive laws, such as the Online Security Act or laws on NGOs. We note with concern that the Prevention of Terrorism Act is still in force. We are concerned by the potential use of these laws to repress the rights to freedom of expression and association, and we call on Sri Lanka's authorities to adapt national legislation so as to bring it into line with its international obligations. Switzerland is concerned by reports of arbitrary arrests, ill treatment and torture during the anti-drug operations carried out by the armed forces. Such allegations must be investigated and the perpetrators brought to justice.
India hopes that the upcoming elections in Sri Lanka would further the cause of national reconciliation in the island nation. Anura Kumara, councillor at the Permanent Mission of India, made these comments during the 57th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva.
As a close friend and immediate neighbor, India has consistently supported the relief, rehabilitation, resettlement and reconstruction process in Sri Lanka since 2009. India has also provided multi-pronged support totaling more than $4 billion to Sri Lanka and its people in 2022 to tide over its economic challenges and subsequently work closely with the government of Sri Lanka in finalizing the debt restructuring discussions. India has always been guided by two fundamental principles. First, support to the aspirations of the Sri Lankan Tamil community for equality, justice, dignity and peace. And second, the unity, territorial integrity and sovereignty of Sri Lanka. a comprehensive political solution to the ethnic issue through meaningful devolution of powers to provincial councils, holding of provincial council elections, and full and effective implementation of the 13th Amendment of its constitution by the government of Sri Lanka will facilitate the reconciliation process in Sri Lanka. Mr. President, while we have taken note of the measures taken by the government of Sri Lanka towards reconciliation in the recent past, we continue to urge the government of Sri Lanka towards an early and meaningful implementation of its commitments. We also hope that the elections in Sri Lanka will further the cause of national reconciliation.
China has commended Sri Lanka's efforts to promote and protect human rights during a recent session. Its representative to the UNHRC criticized the Human Rights Council resolution, which calls for an evidence collection and accountability mechanism, arguing that it disregards Sri Lanka's efforts and achievements.
China appreciates Sri Lanka's efforts to promote and protect human rights, including establishing the Truth and Reconciliation Committee to promote reconciliation and reconstruction, actively cooperating with human rights mechanisms, combating terrorism, protecting the rights of vulnerable groups, promoting economic recovery, and improving people's living standards. As always, China will firmly support Sri Lanka in its efforts to maintain political stability, focus on economic construction, achieve national independence and sustainable development, and create favorable conditions for its economic and social development and the improvement of people's living standards. China always advocates addressing differences in the field of human rights through dialogue and cooperation, and opposes the politicization of human rights issues. The Human Rights Council, in Resolution 51/1 in particular, calls for establishing a so-called evidence collection and accountability mechanism, ignoring the efforts and achievements of the Sri Lankan government to promote and protect human rights, ignoring the will of the Sri Lankan people and interfering in the country's internal affairs under the guise of human rights. This is the typical case in point of politicization of human rights issues. The Council should not encourage this trend. China urges developing countries to respect the path of human rights development independently chosen by the Sri Lankan people, abandon the practice of interfering in other countries' internal affairs and exerting political pressure, and return to the right path of dialogue and cooperation.
James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars and the beloved Mufasa in Disney's Lion King, has died aged 93.
Don't turn your back on me, Scar. You are more than what you have become.
Screen legend and one of the most recognizable voices in cinema, James Earl Jones, died on Monday at 93. He leaves behind an esteemed film canon that will live on for decades to come, in films such as Field of Dreams, Coming to America, a Tom Clancy trilogy, and of course, his iconic voice work as the villainous Darth Vader in numerous Star Wars projects and the beloved Mufasa in Disney's Lion King and its sequels. During his career, Jones earned 3 Emmys, 3 Tonys, a Grammy and an honorary Oscar in 2011 for lifetime achievement. James Earl Jones's career spanned over 6 decades. He made his Broadway debut in 1957 after pursuing a medical degree in college and serving in the United States Army during the Korean War. His significant breakthrough in film came with Stanley Kubrick's 1964 classic Dr. Strangelove, which launched his career on the big screen, later returning to the stage.
In a thrilling AFC Asia Cup qualifier match, Sri Lanka secured a hard-fought victory against Cambodia with a 4-2 win in a penalty shootout, following a 2-all draw at full-time. The intense showdown took place at the iconic Phnom Olympic Stadium, where both teams showcased their resilience in front of an energetic crowd. The match was a roller coaster of emotions, with Cambodia and Sri Lanka trading goals throughout the 90 minutes of regulation time. Despite several attempts from both sides to seal a win during the regular period, the game remained locked at 2-all, forcing a dramatic penalty shootout. And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.